back to another episode of the Jarring Science Club. I'm your host Brenda, and Amy is here with me in the room, so you may hear her in the background. And today we're going to be making an ocean-themed density jar. Here's what you'll need for this experiment. A jar, glass or plastic, some blue food coloring, some oil, some sand, you'd only need a little bit, but you will need some sand, and some water. Alright, let's get started. Here we are all zoomed in, and let's get started making the layers of our jar. The first thing you need to add is sand. And you'll want to keep the layers about as even as you can. So you'll fill this about 1/3 of the way with sand. That looks like about 1/3. Next, we're going to dye some water blue to mimic our ocean. All right, let's pour our water in. Now, some of the water is going to saturate the sand because there are gaps in the sand, but that's okay. And finally, our oil layer, which is going to represent the air. Now we're going to put our lid on tightly and then shake up the jar. Now let's watch and see what happens. Well, this is unexpected. Some of the sand is actually getting trapped in the oil layer. So here it almost looks like the sand has formed sort of dirt clouds in there. Something in my sand is less dense than water. Let's take a little pipette and stir this up and see what happens. The water sinks right down, but that filmy stuff is still staying there. Let's get it from another angle. It looks like stirring it is pushing it down a little bit. Very, very interesting. It looks like the little tiny sand particles are getting stuck in the oil and they're not going down. This is why I like science, because even though I've done this experiment so many times, sometimes it can still surprise you. Sand is not supposed to be trapped in an oil layer. I wonder what it is in there that's getting stuck. What is less dense? Okay, I looked it up and I can't see any reason why the sand wouldn't be falling. So the hypothesis that I now have is that whatever this filmy stuff is that came out of my sand isn't actually sand. And I took a bit out and here's what it looks like. It's like a thin, cloudy kind of substance that kind of looks like fat. So I don't know what that is. I can't find any answers on the internet for what that is. If you guys can figure it out, I really would like to know. I would love for you guys to find that out for me. There's the sand. You can see the thick particles of sand separated from the finer grains of sand. And then there's the water. And then here is the oil with that mystery substance in it. Very, very interesting. Here's the science. Today you made an ocean-themed density jar to illustrate how different materials can be different densities, even though they're taking up the same amount of space in your jar. Well, as you saw, that experiment did not go the way that I had anticipated. The sand that I used has something in there that is actually less dense than water. It's sticking in the oil layer. I can't find anything online to say what that might be. I'm very curious. If you guys know what it is, find out for me and tell me, because this is very, very interesting to me. This is why I love science, because even though I've done this experiment dozens of times, it surprised me this time, because I did not expect the sand to have something added to it. So typically your sand would all fall down to the bottom layer, your water would stay in the middle, and then the oil would remain on the top because it's the least dense. But Sneaky Sneaky Sand has something in there, mystery substance, that has the same density as the oil. And here it is in the jar. You can see the bigger sand particles, the smaller sand particles, the water, and then the oil with that mystery cloudy substance in there. Don't know what that is, but it's super fun to try and figure it out and to keep doing these experiments even if you've done them before, because they can still surprise you. That's what's super cool about science and why I love doing experiments. If you want to take this experiment further, you can drop in little items into your jar and see how dense they are by where they land in the jar. If they fall to the sand layer, they're denser than water and oil. If they stay above the oil, that means they're less dense than all of the materials. And if they hover in the water layer, they are more dense than oil, but not as dense as sand. That's it for today. See you next time.